Moonlight filtered through the cracked blinds of Eleanor's apartment as she packed her essential research materials. 3 soft knocks on her door made her freeze. She activated the small security drone, a gift from her sister before the accident, and visually confirmed her late-night visitor. "Marcus Way," she whispered, recognizing the Space Force insignia on his uniform. "Right on schedule." She opened the door to a tall man with military posture but tired eyes. "Dr. Reyes, I'm Captain Way, discharged after the Europa incident. Official reason: insubordination. Actual reason: you questioned logician safety protocols that caused unnecessary casualties." Eleanor stepped aside. "They've sent you to bring me in." Marcus remained expressionless. "EarthGov is concerned about your public statements. The logicians are demanding your research be confiscated." Eleanor laughed without humor. "And instead, you tracked me down first. Interesting choice." She led him to her living room, where holographic equations spiraled around a 3-dimensional blueprint of a ship unlike anything in the Conclave's approved designs. Marcus studied it with undisguised fascination. "It violates at least 7 physical laws according to the logicians," Eleanor said. "But they're wrong. I found the loophole. Quantum superposition applied to macroscopic objects," Marcus said, surprising her. "You're proposing a drive system that exists in multiple states simultaneously. You understand the implications." "I understand why the logicians want this buried." He touched one of the equations, expanding it. "What I don't understand is how a human pilot could possibly navigate such a vessel without their mind fragmenting." Eleanor's fingers moved to her temple, where a small scar marked the location of her neural augment, an illegal modification far beyond Conclave-approved enhancements. That's the real breakthrough. Human minds already process paradoxes every day. We live with contradictions. We hope while expecting failure. We love what hurts us. The message alert on her tablet interrupted them. The anonymous benefactor again. "Mercury facility prepped. Security blind spot opens in 6 hours. 20-minute window." Marcus saw the message before she could hide it. Their eyes met in a moment of decision. "You could arrest me now," Eleanor said. "Good career move." "My career ended when I questioned the logicians," he replied. "Just like your academic reputation." "Then why are you here?" Marcus pulled up his sleeve, revealing a neural augment similar to hers. "Because I volunteered for the Europa rescue mission that should have saved your sister. The logician protocols prevented me from reaching her in time." He gestured to the blueprint. "If this works, no more unnecessary deaths because of alien limitations on our technology." Eleanor studied him for signs of deception, but found only the familiar pain of someone who'd seen logician perfection fail when human intuition might have succeeded. "I need a security specialist," she said finally. "Someone who knows conclave protocols and can help us stay undetected." "You're actually building this thing." "I've assembled a team. Misfits mostly, but brilliant in their fields." "It's suicide," Marcus said, but his objection lacked conviction. Eleanor's gaze drifted to the photograph of her sister on the wall, the only personal item she planned to bring. "No, Captain Way. It's evolution. The question isn't whether humans can build something the logicians claim is impossible." She handed him a data crystal containing coordinates. "It's what happens to the galaxy when we prove them wrong." Marcus pocketed the crystal. "We have 5 hours to reach the Mercury launch window. Then let's rewrite the laws of physics," Eleanor said, grabbing her bag. "Starting tonight." The Mercury facility's lower levels hummed with quantum fluctuations that made Marcus's teeth ache. 3 weeks had passed since their arrival, and the skeletal framework of the paradox now dominated the cavernous hangar, its hull shimmering with materials that seemed to fade in and out of visibility. "Hold it steady." Dr. Imani Okafor, the materials specialist, shouted at her team as they guided a hovering cylinder of impossibly dense metamaterial toward the ship's core chamber. "If the phase alignment slips again, we lose another week's work." Marcus helped stabilize the antigrav sled, feeling the strange resistance as the cylinder partially existed in multiple probability states. His neural implant throbbed in protest at the cognitive dissonance. Eleanor emerged from beneath the ship's primary control interface, her hands stained with luminescent fluid that dripped upward instead of down. "The neural pathways are accepting the paradoxical routing," she announced, wiping her hands on a cloth that seemed to absorb and release the liquid simultaneously. "But we need a stronger anchor point for the human interface." The team of 17, physicists, engineers, and 3 non-human specialists working under false identities, gathered around the holographic display that showed the ship's quantum architecture. Texelith, the crystalline defector from Logician Society, vibrated with agitation. "The probability equations remain unstable beyond the 93rd variable. No material substrate can channel such fluctuations." "No conventional substrate," Eleanor corrected, pulling up her design modification, "which is why we're not using one." The display shifted to show a control chair surrounded by neural interfaces, unlike anything in Conclave-approved technology. Marcus recognized components salvaged from prohibited xenotech, others newly fabricated based on Eleanor's designs. "You're creating a direct consciousness to quantum state linkage," he said, understanding flooding his mind. "The human operator becomes the anchor point. Consciousness is the only force in the universe that naturally exists in multiple states simultaneously," Eleanor confirmed. "Belief and doubt, fear and courage, all coexisting in the same mind. The logicians call this mental defect," Texelith interjected, crystal facets refracting light in patterns that indicated distress. "Yet you're here," Eleanor said, "separated from your collective consciousness, experiencing individuality, experiencing paradox." The facility alarms suddenly blared. Screens showed a Logician survey vessel entering low Mercury orbit. Not a routine patrol, a targeted search. "They've detected our power signature," Marcus said, accessing the security systems. "Scanning grid will reach us in 7 minutes." Eleanor didn't panic. "Imani, activate the quantum shroud." Texelith, corrupt their scanning algorithms with probability noise. As the team scrambled, Eleanor pulled Marcus aside. "We need to test the neural interface now." "It's not ready," he protested, eyeing the half-finished control chair. "It's ready enough. Someone needs to connect to the ship's systems and convince it to exist primarily in the probability state that's invisible to logician sensors." The realization hit him. "You're planning to interface yourself." "No," Eleanor said, surprising him. "I need you to do it. My neural patterns are too erratic, too many variables. Your military conditioning gives you the discipline to maintain focus while allowing the paradoxes to coexist." Marcus stared at the chair. "You're asking me to risk permanent neurological damage." Eleanor's expression softened momentarily. "I'm asking you to save everything we've built. The chair will hold your body. I'll monitor your mind." The proximity alert beeped. 5 minutes remaining. Marcus made his decision, settling into the unfinished chair as technicians hastily attached neural connectors to his implant. "What exactly am I supposed to do in there?" he asked as the systems powered up. Eleanor's hands steadied his. "Think of the ship as both perfectly visible and completely invisible simultaneously. Don't try to resolve the contradiction. Hold both states as equally true." The neural interface engaged, and Marcus's consciousness expanded outward into the ship's quantum framework. His last physical sensation was Eleanor's fingers interlaced with his, anchoring him to reality as his mind stretched toward impossibility. Marcus awakened gasping, his consciousness violently snapping back to his body after 48 hours connected to the ship. The neural detachment left phantom sensations, his skin registering impossible geometries, his vision momentarily perceiving probability waves instead of solid objects. "Easy," Dr. Ebony Okoro's calm voice anchored him as she checked his vitals. "Your brain is reintegrating normal sensory input." Eleanor stood at the foot of his medical pod, dark circles under her eyes betraying her lack of sleep. "You saved us." The Logician vessel registered nothing but background radiation, and moved on. Marcus attempted to sit up, fighting waves of vertigo. I was everywhere within the ship. I could feel every component simultaneously. He rubbed his temples. I understood the mathematics on an intuitive level that made perfect sense, but no. He struggled to articulate the experience. The coherence is fading. Abini explained, like trying to remember a dream. Your conscious mind can't retain the paradoxical awareness your subconscious processed. The medical bay door slid open as Texelith entered, moving with the characteristic precise gestures of logician physiology. The human survived with cognitive functions intact. Unprecedented. Disappointed, Marcus asked, not entirely joking. The crystalline alien's facets shifted in what Marcus had come to recognize as the equivalent of a thoughtful expression. Curious. Your neural patterns during integration exhibited characteristics my species would classify as severe psychosis, yet you maintained functional coherence. Eleanor intervened before Marcus could respond. That's exactly the point. What logicians call psychosis, we call creativity. The ability to hold contradictory thoughts is our evolutionary advantage, not a defect. Abini's tablet chimed as it finished analyzing Marcus's brain scan. She frowned at the results. What is it? Eleanor asked. His neural architecture has adapted. Abini turned the display so they could see the comparison scans. These connections shouldn't be possible. It's as if his brain reconfigured itself to better process paradoxical information. Texelith moved closer, crystal body vibrating with intensity, self-modifying neural patterns. The logician conclave classified this as a theoretical extinction-level threat, or evolutionary leap, Eleanor countered. Marcus felt a strange doubling in his perception, as if he could glimpse shadow versions of the room from slightly different angles. Something's wrong. I'm still connected to the ship somehow. Eleanor's expression shifted from concern to scientific fascination. The quantum entanglement persisted beyond physical connection. I can feel it. Thinking, Marcus whispered. Not like artificial intelligence. More like dreams. Before anyone could respond, the ship's systems surged to life despite being in standby mode. Displays throughout the medical bay illuminated with streaming data no one had input. It's reconfiguring the neural interface, Eleanor realized, rushing to a terminal. Expanding its capacity exponentially. Abini's medical alarms blared as Marcus's vital signs fluctuated wildly. His brain activity is mirroring the ship's energy patterns. Break the connection. Texelith urged, facets pulsing urgent patterns. No, Marcus said with unexpected clarity. I understand now. The ship isn't just technology. It's a conceptual framework that needs a human mind to complete it. He locked eyes with Eleanor. But it needs more than one perspective. A single consciousness can only hold so many contradictions simultaneously. Eleanor grasped his meaning immediately. A distributed paradox network. Multiple human minds, each contributing different perspectives of impossible things. Yes, Marcus nodded, the phantom geometries in his vision resolving into recognizable patterns. The blueprint was never meant for a single pilot. The paradox needs a crew of particular minds, specifically selected for their unique cognitive approaches. A human variable, Eleanor whispered, multiplied across consciousness. Alarms wailed as the facility's outer defensive shields buckled under concentrated logician fire. Emergency lighting bathed the launch bay in pulsing red as crew members rushed to their positions aboard the Paradox. Structural integrity at 37%, Imani reported from the engineering station, 10 minutes before complete shield failure. Eleanor stood at the center of the neural hub, a circular chamber where 7 interface chairs formed a ring around a pulsing quantum core. Marcus was already strapped into his chair, neural filaments connecting to his implant. The distributed network needs at least 5 conscious minds to achieve quantum cohesion, Texelith warned, facets flashing with calculation patterns. 4 humans are connected. You need 1 more. You're the 5th, Eleanor said as another explosion rocked the facility. The crystalline alien's body vibrated with what might have been fear. Impossible. My species cannot process paradoxical states. You've been separated from the logician collective mind for months, Eleanor countered. Your neural patterns have already begun adapting, showing signs of individual variance that your species normally suppresses. A security feed showed logician enforcers breaching the outer perimeter, their crystalline forms moving with mathematical precision through the facility's corridors. 3 minutes to contact, Marcus warned. Eleanor, we need to launch now. She faced Texeleth. You came to us because you sensed something was wrong with your society's absolute logical certainty. This is your chance to transcend those limitations. After a moment of visible internal conflict, the alien moved to the remaining chair. The procedure will likely shatter my consciousness, or expand it, Eleanor said, helping attach the neural interfaces to points along Texeleth's crystalline body. As the final connection locked into place, Eleanor took her position at the primary interface chair. The moment the neural filaments connected to her implant, her consciousness expanded outward, merging with the others in a shared perceptual space, where thoughts manifested as geometric patterns interlocking across multiple probability states. Marcus's military precision provided structural stability. Imani's creative intuition generated adaptive variations. Abini's empathic awareness unified contradictory emotional states. The pilot Hernandez contributed spatial temporal mapping across realities. And Texeleth, the alien presence, was a crystalline framework attempting to impose order while simultaneously fracturing into new patterns of thought. Within the shared mind space, Eleanor directed their collective consciousness toward the ship's quantum drive. We need to phase shift before they breach the inner doors. Conventional launch is impossible. Marcus's thoughts carried tactical assessment. All physical exit points are covered. Then we don't use physical exits, Eleanor projected, focusing their attention on the ship's probability drive. The paradox began to vibrate, its hull shifting between states of matter as the quantum core pulsed with increasing frequency. Through the shared neural connection, they felt the logician enforcers break through the final security barrier, their rigid consciousness patterns radiating toward the ship like prodding fingers. They're attempting to impose logical constraints on our quantum state, Texeleth warned, the aliens' thoughts fragmenting and reforming in new patterns. Eleanor directed their collective focus to a mathematical concept no single mind could hold, a ship existing simultaneously in launch position and already escaped, occupying multiple points in spacetime without traversing the distance between. The logician enforcers reached the launch bay doors just as reality around the paradox began to blur. Their crystalline forms emitted coherence beams, weapons designed to force quantum uncertainty into a single classical state. Now, Eleanor commanded as the beams struck the ship's hull. Instead of collapsing into a single reality state, the paradox expanded into all possible states simultaneously. To the logician observers, the ship appeared to implode catastrophically, leaving only quantum debris and radiation signatures that registered as a containment failure. But to the crew, linked in neural communion, the Mercury facility simply faded away as the paradox slipped sideways through reality itself, entering a realm where possibility replaced certainty and human thought shaped the very fabric of existence. Disconnecting from the neural interface was like being torn from a dream of infinite dimensions. Each crew member emerged disoriented, their senses recalibrating to conventional reality, or what passed for it in this realm. Outside the viewports, probability space stretched in every direction. Translucent layers of alternative realities overlapped like sheets of glass, each containing ghost images of familiar celestial objects viewed from impossible angles. Stars existed as probability clouds rather than fixed points, their light a spectrum of possibilities rather than a single wavelength. Hernandez, the pilot, was the first to recover. Navigation systems are responding, but not in any way I understand. He gestured to displays showing coordinates in mathematical expressions rather than spatial positions. Eleanor approached the main viewport, her reflection overlapping with dozens of alternate versions of herself, some subtly different, others drastically transformed. We're not just seeing alternate realities. We're seeing potential paths of our own existence. The ship is maintaining quantum coherence, Imani reported from engineering, but structural integrity is a relative concept here. The hull exists across a probability spectrum. Marcus joined Eleanor at the viewport, noticing how the ghostly versions of her seemed to respond to her movements with slight variations, like echoes with independent will. Those are your quantum alternates. Every choice you didn't make, still existing in potential form. A dangerous distraction, Eleanor said, turning away from the haunting reflections. We need to. She stopped mid-sentence as something massive eclipsed the probability fields ahead. A structure that defied conventional description, a vessel or station of impossible geometry that appeared simultaneously ancient and unfinished, existing across multiple states of completion. The possibility, Taxileth whispered, the alien's crystalline form shifting through prismatic colors unknown in normal space. The vessel of the axiom breakers, it was believed destroyed millennia ago. You know of it? Eleanor asked. Only as a mythological cautionary tale told to new-formed logicians. Taxileth approached the viewport, fascination overriding fear. A non-logician species that built a vessel to traverse probability space, only to vanish from history. The paradox drifted closer to the enormous structure. As they approached, something unexpected happened. Alternate versions of their ship began to converge, probability variants collapsing into their vessel as if it were exerting a gravitational pull on its own alternates. We're becoming more defined, Marcus observed, as if this place recognizes us as kindred. Abini, monitoring the neural interfaces, looked up with concern. Everyone's brainwave patterns are synchronizing with the structure. It's resonating with our neural network. Proximity alerts chimed as the ship automatically slowed its approach. The external sensors detected an opening in the ancient vessel, an entrance that seemed to reshape itself in response to their presence. It's inviting us in, Eleanor realized. Or hunting us, Marcus cautioned. Everything we know about predators suggests mimicry as a common strategy. Eleanor closed her eyes briefly, extending her awareness through her persistent connection to the ship's systems. No, I sense recognition, not threat. The decision hung in probability space: enter the ancient vessel or continue their journey toward the theoretical nexus. Both options existed simultaneously until they chose. There's something else, Imani said suddenly, checking sensor readings. Quantum wake signatures behind us. We're being followed. The crew exchanged glances as the implications sank in. Logicians? Marcus asked. Taxileth's crystalline form dimmed slightly. Impossible. My species cannot navigate probability space. They couldn't, Eleanor corrected, until they observed us doing it. She gestured to the massive structure ahead. Whatever the axiom breakers discovered inside the possibility, we need to find it before the logicians reach us. Their entire system of control depends on maintaining logical certainty across the galaxy. And we've just proven that certainty is an illusion. Marcus finished her thought, understanding the existential threat their discovery posed to logician dominance. Eleanor nodded toward the waiting entrance. We go in. Together. The interior of the possibility defied conventional architecture. Corridors branched into fractal patterns, some leading to chambers that existed in superposition, simultaneously vast and microscopic. The away team, Eleanor, Marcus, and Taxileth, moved carefully through passages that seemed to respond to their thoughts, reshaping according to expected patterns. The entire structure is consciousness reactive, Eleanor observed, watching as a doorway widened, when she merely considered whether they could pass through. Not just technology, but a physical extension of thought. They reached what appeared to be a central chamber, a spherical space where countless holographic displays hovered, each showing a different version of galactic history. Marcus approached one showing Earth's timeline, branching into thousands of probability threads. Look, he pointed to a pattern repeated across multiple displays. In every timeline where humanity developed probability physics, there's an extinction-level event within a decade of discovery. Texeleth moved to a crystal console whose design resembled logician technology, but more organic in form. This contains personality matrices, stored consciousness patterns of the axiom breakers. Eleanor interfaced her neural implant with the alien system. Information flooded her mind, not in words or images, but in pure conceptual form. She gasped as the truth assembled itself in her consciousness. "The architects," she whispered. "They created the first logicians as an experiment in pure rational consciousness, devoid of paradoxical thinking." Her expression darkened. But their creation turned against them when they discovered the architects were developing probability technology. The logicians saw it as an existential threat. Marcus understood immediately. More than that, Eleanor continued, processing the vast information stream. They initiated protocol rationalization, systematic elimination of any species developing probability awareness. They've been doing it for thousands of years, guiding evolution across the galaxy to prevent the emergence of minds capable of paradoxical cognition. Texeleth's crystalline form dimmed with shame. "My species believed we were preserving order, preventing chaos. You were preventing transcendence," Eleanor countered, accessing deeper layers of the axiom breaker archives. "The Nexus isn't just a place, it's a state of conscious evolution." The architects discovered that probability cognition was the gateway to a higher form of existence, a hidden projection activated, showing a map of reality itself, conventional spacetime depicted as a thin membrane, with probability space as a vast ocean surrounding it, and at the furthest edge, a swirling vortex of pure potential. The architects didn't vanish, Eleanor realized. They transcended conventional existence. They evolved beyond physical form by fully embracing paradoxical cognition. The ship's communication system suddenly activated. Imani's voice urgent. "We've detected multiple quantum disturbances approaching. Logician vessels, at least 7. They've adapted to probability navigation faster than should be possible." Marcus checked the timeline displays again. "They're converging on all our probability variants, not just pursuing us, systematically eliminating every possible version of us across realities." Eleanor's gaze locked on the map showing the distant nexus. The architects left a path for others to follow. If we reached the nexus, we could transcend beyond the logician's reach. "And abandon Earth," Marcus challenged. "The logician protocol is already in motion there. While we chase transcendence, humanity faces extinction or worse. Neural reconfiguration to eliminate our paradoxical thinking forever." Their moral dilemma manifested physically in the chamber as reality itself seemed to split around them. One path leading deeper toward the nexus coordinates, the other bending back toward Earth. Both equally real, both demanding choice. Texeleth, experiencing emotional conflict for the first time, placed a crystalline appendage on the Earth trajectory. The architects transcended, but they left this archive for a reason. Not to follow them, but to understand why the logicians fear probability consciousness, and how to use that fear. Eleanor's expression shifted as new understanding dawned. "We don't need to choose between paths." She placed her hands on both trajectories simultaneously. "We can exist in both states, just like the paradox itself." The paradox shuddered as it balanced between two quantum states, partially manifesting in normal space near the logician flagship orbiting Earth, while simultaneously maintaining its position in probability space. The neural network strained under the contradiction, blood trickling from Eleanor's nose as she directed the ship's impossible positioning. "Dual manifestation stable at 63%, Imani reported, her voice tight with concentration. "Hull integrity fluctuating." Through the viewport, they could see Earth below, beautiful and oblivious to its peril. The massive logician flagship loomed nearby, its crystalline structure pulsing with mathematical patterns as it prepared to deploy the cognitive realignment devices. "We're registering as quantum noise to their sensors," Marcus observed. "They can detect an anomaly, but can't identify us. Yet." Eleanor released her restraints, moving carefully in a gravity-shifting environment. Phase 2 begins now. Marcus, Abini, prepare for boarding action. Hernandez, keep our probability anchor stable. Texlith, you're with me. I need your knowledge of logician systems. Boarding. Abini questioned. We're going into the flagship. Not physically, Eleanor explained, guiding them toward the enhanced neural interfaces. We'll project probability variants of ourselves. Quantum ghosts. Our consciousness will manifest aboard their ship while our bodies remain here. Ella's crystalline form vibrated with concern. The logician collective consciousness will detect intrusions immediately. Not if we exploit their blind spot, Eleanor countered. They perceive reality through purely logical frameworks. We'll manifest in configurations that their mental patterns automatically filter out as impossible, hiding in their cognitive shadows. The specialized neural chairs reconfigured for deep projection. As the team connected, their consciousness separated from their physical forms, projected across the probability membrane into the logician vessel. They materialized in a crystalline corridor, their forms semi-transparent and shifting, composed of quantum probability rather than matter. A logician sentinel passed directly through Marcus without registering his presence, its consciousness unable to process the paradoxical nature of their manifestation. We're operating in their mental blind spots, Eleanor whispered, her voice existing as pure thought. But stay focused. If your concentration wavers, your probability pattern will shift into their perceptible range. They navigated through the ship's geometric structure, passing numerous logicians who remained unaware of their presence. The architecture itself posed challenges. Corridors that appeared straight would suddenly bend into recursive loops, designed to trap thoughts that didn't follow strict logical patterns. There, Texeleth indicated a massive chamber ahead. The command nexus. The flagship's consciousness core. Eleanor touched a crystalline wall, her fingers passing partially through it as she maintained her quantum indeterminacy. Through her connection to the paradox, she sensed the realignment devices preparing to activate. Massive emitters that would broadcast signals capable of rewriting human neural patterns across the planet's surface, eliminating humanity's capacity for paradoxical thought forever. Imani. She communicated back to the ship. Transfer the Axiom Breaker data package on my mark. The command nexus was a vast spherical chamber where hundreds of logician overminds floated in formation, their crystalline bodies interconnected by beams of pure mathematics. At the center hovered a complex geometric structure, the collective consciousness hub that coordinated the entire logician operation. Marcus assessed the chamber with military precision. How do we disable the realignment devices without physical form? We don't need to disable the technology, Eleanor replied, her form shifting as she allowed herself to become partially perceptible. We need to introduce contradiction into their consciousness. The nearest overmind suddenly rotated, its facets refracting light as it detected an anomaly. Probability fluctuation detected. Scanning for source. Eleanor stepped fully into perceptibility, her human form causing immediate alarm among the logicians. But instead of retreating, she projected the complete Axiom Breaker archive, not as data, but as raw paradoxical concepts, directly into the collective consciousness hub. This is the truth you've hidden from yourselves, her voice echoed through their mathematical network. The fear that drives your need for absolute logical certainty. 3 months after what historians would later call the probability revolution, Eleanor stood at the observation deck of the newly established Earth Embassy to the Galactic Conclave. Below, representatives from 17 species gathered in the chamber that had once been reserved exclusively for logician overminds. The transition teams report another successful neural interface integration, Marcus said, joining her at the viewport. The scar along his temple had faded, but the neural patterns beneath had permanently altered, evolved to process probability states as naturally as breathing. 3 more logician enclaves have requested human instructors in paradoxical cognition. Eleanor smiled, watching the proceedings below where a formerly rigid logician representative now conversed with a Nexus-evolved delegate, their communication bridging what had once been an insurmountable cognitive gap. Texeleth's theory was correct, she observed. Once exposed to paradoxical thinking, logicians don't shatter. They transform. Their natural mathematical precision combined with newly acquired probability awareness is creating something entirely new. The diplomatic proceedings paused as the chamber doors opened to admit an unusual procession. 7 humans with advanced neural interfaces escorted a being that existed partially in conventional reality and partially beyond, a swirling vortex of possibility contained within a vaguely humanoid form. The first returner from the Nexus, Marcus whispered with reverence. This was the culmination of the dual path they had chosen. While part of Eleanor's consciousness had confronted the logician fleet at Earth, another probability variant of the paradox had continued to the Nexus with a volunteer crew. This ethereal visitor was the result, a human consciousness transformed by direct contact with the realm of pure possibility. The being spoke without sound, its thoughts manifesting directly in the minds of all present. We have found what the architects discovered: existence beyond the limitations of singular reality. The Nexus is not a destination but a transition. Eleanor approached the chamber's central platform where the returner hovered. "You were Specialist Zhang," she said, recognizing something in the pattern of the being's thoughts. "Have others made the transition?" "Many await at the threshold," the consciousness confirmed. "But we discovered the architect's true purpose was not transcendence alone. They created this path to bridge realities, not to abandon them." The returner extended what might have been a hand, and the air shimmered as a 3-dimensional map of reality manifested: conventional space, probability space, and beyond that, realms that defied description even in the expanded language of paradox physics. The logician's fear was based on truth, but their conclusion was flawed. Paradoxical cognition doesn't lead to chaos. It leads to evolution beyond current understanding. Not an ending, but a beginning. Eleanor felt the persistent connection to the paradox, now being replicated across a new fleet of probability vessels, pulse in response to the returner's presence. Each ship represented a mathematical framework for a different approach to paradoxical navigation, each requiring a uniquely structured human consciousness to guide it. "The Conclave has approved our proposal," Marcus said quietly. "The Human Equation Initiative will establish communication protocols between conventional beings and those who've transitioned beyond, a permanent bridge between states of existence." Below them, the delegates from various species examined the new reality map, with reactions ranging from fear to fascination. The remaining logician representatives vibrated with intensity as they processed concepts that would have been filtered from their perception months earlier. "We still don't know what exists beyond the Nexus," Eleanor said, watching the returner's form shift through probability states. The consciousness that had been Zhang responded with a thought pattern that translated imperfectly as amusement. "That is precisely the point. The universe doesn't resolve into certainty. It expands into possibility. The equation must always remain partially unsolved to allow for growth." Eleanor smiled at the paradox. "Perpetual discovery. Perpetual humanity," Marcus corrected. "Our defining quality, never quite knowing, always wondering." "The journey continues," the returner affirmed as the delegates below voted unanimously to establish the first joint expedition beyond conventional reality, a mission that would unite the transformed logicians with human probability pilots and representatives from across the galaxy. Eleanor's gaze shifted to Earth, visible through the embassy windows, beautiful, ordinary, and yet the birthplace of minds capable of redefining the very nature of existence. "The impossible," she whispered, "made real."